Welcome to BNEWS Weekly. I'm Phil Gallagher, along with BNEWS Director Rich Hosford, BNEWS reporters Tad Stefanak, Chris Flaherty, and Robert Paris. Thank you for joining us. The coronavirus pandemic has impacted all aspects of life, and our students have not been spared. As reported, schools are now closed until the end of the academic year, meaning students are attempting to learn remotely. To find out how that is going and what the school department has in the works for year-end activities, such as graduation, we've invited Burlington Superintendent Dr. Eric Conti to join us this week for an update. Dr. Conti, how are you?
Good, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you.
Okay, kind of a different year for you than than normal. I hate to put that in a comic vein, but certainly something that you nor anybody else has trained for.
Absolutely. I think it puts the stress around a snow day call in perspective. Closing schools down even for a day is something that takes a lot of thinking, a lot of pressure, and we take that very seriously. So you can imagine closing down for 3 months, how significant that is.
Now, this has affected learning certainly, but it's also affected so many other aspects of a child's life, particularly obviously the educational enrichment, but the social enrichment, the school activities, all of your programs, including athletics. How do you intend to catch up in these areas, if at all possible?
Again, I'm not sure we'll be able to catch up completely, but I think what I tend to fall back on is that kids tend to be very flexible and adaptable, and I think they'll be okay. I think the challenge, from my perspective, is any inequity that existed in our school community or in our overall community. Um, I think has been amplified by this situation. So our kids who struggle, um, sometimes we have to be concerned about them struggling more. Our kids who tend to anxiety when they're out of routine, um, this might be something that exacerbates again their anxiety. Um, we have kids who are thriving, Phil, in this environment because they're very comfortable learning remotely. School might not be a place where they like to go; they would rather be home. So we really have a spectrum that we're trying to address, but we're certainly focusing on our sort of our most needy. The social aspects of learning, again, are critical. You mentioned athletics as being part of that. Our high school seniors, I think, really are missing out on some uh, sort of very significant life events in terms of graduation and other senior week and things that I'm sure we all carry memories about back from our high school. Um, and so I think we're trying to adapt as best we can. Um, but ultimately, there have been other historical events that have interrupted education that we've survived pretty well as a society. And I think our kids will, once we address the closure and some of their questions and potentially some of their anxiety about it, that we'll pick up right where we left off and we'll continue to make progress.
How about for this group of seniors, things such as graduation and prom and other various social activities that they're missing out on? Is there any delayed activity that might be put in place for them?
Um, Phil, they as a group, they've been incredible. The leadership that they've demonstrated, the resilience. Um, they sent a gratitude video to their teachers. They basically said, if this is going to be our legacy, we wanted to sort of say thank you. I mean, they've done amazingly mature things from my perspective, and I just think it bodes well for all of their futures. In terms of some of the activities that we're looking at, I know Mark Sullivan, the principal, has a team together looking at graduation. And I know he's working with Brendan at Park and Rec and Susan at the Board of Health just to ensure that the plan makes sense. But our objective is to have some sort of graduation event in June. There are districts that are talking about putting it off till August or November or the fall. And we think it's important to mark the end of their senior year when it would have ended. Um, and so we're looking at some options that would certainly be safe, incorporate social distancing, but also allow them to be recognized and celebrated for their significant accomplishments.
All right, let's go back to remote learning. I've been researching the subject a little bit across the country, and it seems like most of the country, from a municipal standpoint, was caught behind the curve in terms of instituting these types of things. Was Burlington ahead of the curve with our iPad program?
I think the iPad program or having sort of modern tools was part of it. I also think we had been a district that had been part of early conversations about putting remote learning plans together for snow days, where we wouldn't necessarily extend the school year, but we could continue learning even if school wasn't in session during the snow day. Of course, our plans at that time were for, one day, maybe 2 days at the most. But I think just having those conversations helped us prepare for this extended closure. I think there's a distinction that probably means more to educators than most other people is remote learning is very different than online learning. Our students aren't experiencing school online. They're not online for 5 or 6 hours a day. That's not what we're trying to replicate. We're really trying to take components of the school day and equip families and parents to deliver that content, have the kids access that content themselves in a way that initially, from the state's perspective, was just to limit any sort of regression. And I think only recently they've been asking us to try to incorporate new content. So the state's expectations of us have really changed too over time as the closure has been extended.
Okay, one quick question on the budget, and I'll let you go. It's in process. I guess it passed the Ways and Means Committee the other night with a positive recommendation. How difficult a process was that this year?
It was very challenging this year in some sense, and then in other aspects, I think that because we were closed, I think a lot of the relationships that sometimes we take advantage of or maybe take for granted, we couldn't. So I felt a lot of our communication has actually been better. And I know you sit on a lot of those committees, and I'm not sure if you have found that as well. But we've been meeting regularly with John Denizio, Paul Sagarino, Nicole Kasha. We have regularly scheduled meetings, Zoom meetings, WebEx meetings. The Ways and Means Subcommittee, the school committee. We've been meeting a lot and talking a lot. So I've actually felt the collaboration hasn't suffered at all. In terms of the budget itself, I'm happy that we presented a budget that was at our guideline that we had established in the fall. If I have any concerns, it's just we have many more unknown questions now than we have known questions. But I tell everyone before we start making those decisions, we need to have a budget, whether no matter how we answer those questions. So I'm saying getting a budget, I think, as a first step is good. And then if we have to make adjustments, I'm sure we'll communicate that, and everyone will help us make those right decisions.
Okay. I'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Eric Conti. Thank you for joining us, and be safe.
Thank you. You too. You as well. And thank you for sharing all this information.
Thanks. Wayne Saltzman of the Burlington Board of Health for a weekly update on the COVID-19 situation.
Dr. Wayne Saltzman, geriatrician and elected member of the Burlington Board of Health, coming to you again this week to help you stay informed, feel supported, and be prepared during this COVID-19 pandemic. Amazingly, information continues to arise that is new and thoughtful, and a number of things that I want to talk to you about today. But first, as always, the numbers, and the numbers are becoming truly impressive. 3.8 million cases of COVID-19 in the world, with 270,000 deaths. In the United States, we have tested 8.1 million people, with 1.25 million becoming positive. Amazingly, data from 2 days ago shows that we are still having in the tens of thousands cases every day. And in the United States, more than 75,000 deaths. Here in Massachusetts, we continue to have significant number of cases after doing 350,000 tests. And we know that there have been 4,500 deaths in Massachusetts and 60% of them, as I commented last week, are due to long-term care facilities. So what does this all mean? It means that despite the fact that there are some places that are getting better, some places are actually getting a little bit worse. And COVID-19 is still very much a reality in our country and in our community. Case in point, when we first started talking about COVID-19, we thought that the children were in some way immune or not affected by this. And we know from recent reports that children may become significantly ill from COVID-19. Still so much to learn, so much to do. In the process of all this, as we know, there are discussions about reopening the United States. And our leaders are debating between economics and between healthcare. And I know that our state and local leaders are entertaining these debates as well. And these debates are not easy because there are arguments on both sides. So please know that the Burlington Board of Health is trying to do its part in helping our local leaders understand how to balance economics with healthcare and consider our community and our business partners at the same time. Obviously, much more information to come on that. I wanted to raise the concern about aggregate housing, not just skilled nursing facilities and cruise ships, but prisons, assisted living facilities. Prisons now have their own dedicated CDC webpage, and the concerns regarding the thousands of individuals who have been infected, both inmates and staff, is very much a reality, and how to help that. But Burlington has 3 assisted living facilities, and we need to keep in mind that these are aggregate housing for older adults. And so we need to be very careful and not just think that we can innocently go and see people in these types of settings. Older adults are very much at risk for being contagious in these settings to COVID-19 as well. So take care. Over-the-counter medications continue to be a focus as possible cures for COVID-19. And the latest one that's come to light is vitamin D. And we've all heard about vitamin D for our bones, et cetera. But there are other effects of vitamin D which makes it possible that they could affect things like the coronavirus. I actually read the article that discusses this, and while we do know how vitamin D might be able to fight very, very small virus particles, the conclusion from these articles was that there's still much work to do and clinical studies to do. So please don't run out and purchase vitamin D thinking that you're protecting yourself. Like any of the other over-the-counter medicines that have been talked about, much more work needs to be done first. So please be cautious. Primary care physicians, specialists, surgeons who do elective surgery are trying to understand how to reopen themselves. I have to tell you, from a doctor point of view, the biggest part about being a doctor is having that interaction, that direct interaction with a patient that telehealth just can't bring to light. So have patience and support our healthcare providers as they're trying to understand as well how they will be able to reopen and start taking care of patients the way they are accustomed and the way our patients are accustomed as well. As always, what can we do? The message is the same, and as I've said before, the message should be a norm in our life now and moving forward. Hand washing, hand washing, hand washing. Clean surfaces that are commonly exposed. Protect your cough and your sneeze. Wear a mask. If you're ill, isolate yourself. And social distancing continues to be important. Once again, if you want to go outside, go outside. Get some fresh air, get some exercise, but be smart. Maintain distancing. And if you can't maintain distancing, as is the mandate in the state of Massachusetts, wear a mask. If you're thinking about an older adult, extend that thought and make a call. It makes all the difference. We're all in this together. Be safe and be well.
On Monday, the Burlington Police and Fire Departments were joined by first responders from the greater Boston area to honor those working on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic at Leahy Hospital and Medical Center. BNEWS Director Rich Hosford was there and has this report.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed?
On Monday afternoon, the loop around Leahy Hospital and Medical Center was full of sirens, cheering medical professionals, and the national anthem sung by none other than Boston Bruins anthem singer Todd Angelini. Did we mention the sirens? Because there were a lot of them. It was an emergency first responder parade to honor the workers at Leahy for being on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. The event was organized by the Burlington Police and Fire Departments, along with Leahy Security and the Middlesex Sheriff's Office, and was attended by first responders from both area towns and some far-flung places like Salem.
We certainly wanted to do a tribute for the personnel and staff of Leahy Hospital. This worked out really well. We were able to organize a large support group that was able to participate in this.
The thinking was take an opportunity to thank our partners really at the Leahy. Public safety and hospital personnel, I think, have a unique bond in that we usually deal with each other in less than the best situations. So it was a nice opportunity to say thank you for everything they've been dealing with, because they're usually taking care of us.
When putting the event together, nobody knew for sure how many different communities would participate. The end result was a pleasant surprise for all.
If it was Burlington, Wilmington, Lexington, Reading, Bedford, we'd still be applauding. It was Lynn, it was Salem, it was Arlington, it was Stoneham, it was Dunstable, and all the eastern part of the state was here today to thank our healthcare workers, and it's a pretty special thing.
It was overwhelming. Myself and Chief Kent, we put out the invitation. You don't know how many people are going to respond, but the response was overwhelming.
It was an incredible turnout. I was amazed by the amount of people outside. We were clapping for them, they were clapping for us, and it was just in the midst of all this chaos that's going on, it was just a nice distraction for 15 or 20 minutes for everyone, I think.
And everyone agreed that those working on the front lines of this pandemic deserve to be recognized.
Well, our hats certainly goes off to the healthcare providers at Leahy Hospital for all they do, and for that matter too, Winchester Hospital and all the facilities that are dealing with this throughout the Commonwealth and the United States.
I can't even begin to imagine what the folks here at Leahy Hospital or any other hospital are going through at this time. To be coming in every day knowing, that their level of exposure is that much higher than anyone else who's being told to stay at home. Coming in every day, giving their all, doing their job. It's amazing.
So the caregivers at Leahy are inspiring. They have risen to this occasion with unanimity, magnanimity, grace, and compassion. I am so humbled to lead this organization. Every day, I hear many, many stories of compassion, of courage, of wonderful care of the patients here and of one another, their fellow caregivers.
Finally, Dr. Lungsworth said that he and his fellow healthcare workers appreciated everyone coming out to support them.
The caregivers at Leahy are incredibly moved by the wonderful support and outpouring of gratitude from the communities on the North Shore. We had no idea there would be so many people here and such wonderful emotion in the air. So from the bottom of our hearts, the Leahy community wants to thank all of those who came here to honor the caregivers today.
Here at BCAT also want to express our deep appreciation for everyone working to care for the sick, fight this pandemic, and keep everyone safe. From Leahy Hospital and Medical Center, I'm BNEWS Director Rich Hosford.
O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
As of this week, anyone who goes into a store in Massachusetts or is outside in situations Where physical distancing is not possible, will have to cover their face. Last Friday, Governor Charlie Baker issued an order that requires all people to wear a mask or other facial coverings in all grocery and retail stores, on public transportation, and in public when they are unable to stay at least 6 feet away from people they do not live with. The order went into effect on Wednesday, May 6th. There are some exceptions. Babies under 2 years old do not have to wear masks. Anyone who can't wear a mask due to a medical condition recognized by the Department of Health are also exempt. For those not exempt, there is a $300 fine per violation, and anyone not wearing a mask can be banned from entering any business in the state. The closing of non-essential businesses and the stay-at-home guidelines have had a big impact on local businesses. BNews reporter Tad Stefanak spoke to a sample of businesses in Burlington to find out how they are managing and finding ways to do business in the COVID economy. He has this look.
Massachusetts has instituted a reopening advisory board to help begin a mindful reentry and getting the economy back on its feet. BNews spoke with Burlington businesses on how they've been handling the quarantine lockdown.
What we've done is we've transitioned our in-person personal training in small group, and we've gone virtual. We've started to train via Zoom and basically any platform our current clients are comfortable with.
Restaurants are among the hardest hit by the quarantine.
Yeah, well, we're wearing a lot of hats here. Right now, it's just myself and 4 other managers holding things down, trying to keep the lights on. So I got my chef lights on. We're doing prep. We're doing dishes. We're the cleaners. We're the cooks. Our takeout menu is basically a discounted and limited version of our regular menu, and there's some family dinners on there.
Yeah, I think the toughest part from our angle is because we are on that healthcare line, that whole, essential versus non-essential aspect. And then from our angle, we were hoping to get some real clarity as far as like whether we fall in that essential category or not. For physical therapists, you could be post-surgical. You could be losing range of motion for the rest of your life. You're in a ton of pain. There's areas that are real necessities for patients.
And so the governor did say that real estate's essential, right? So there was this portion of the business that still has to happen. And unfortunately, still means you have to be in person somewhat, but you can maintain social distancing in almost everything you do. Signatures are done electronically now.
Sekisui is a diagnostics company here in Burlington.
We're in the medical supply chain, so it's very important that we continue to supply our products. Our flu testing kits were used as a frontline defense in COVID testing to identify if people have something else.
Two to 3 weeks before the requirement came out for all the businesses to close, we started thinking about how we're going to do this. We started investigating and practicing moving everything online. The day after we closed our doors in our castle, the next day we were online with all of our adventures.
Burlington businesses have been pivoting to stay ahead of COVID and keep doing business.
We've actually purchased equipment and given it to the clients so that everyone has their own mini gyms, essentially, their mini fitness togethers at home.
We've already started to roll out a new floor plan, which essentially what it does, it keeps all of our tables at least 6 feet apart, no more than 6 people at a table.
The real message at this moment is to let people know we're here for them, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a video, whether you want to come in, whether you just want to, ask me a few questions.
We have found virtual tours that are much more detail oriented. You can zoom in. You could practically see the trim if you needed to in a window. That's how close it can get to it.
Keeping production running was very, very important for us. So we've brought everybody home that can work from home, and that reduces the number of people in any of our different sites.
It's going to be a really interesting summer because they may be suddenly saying, okay, everyone, you can go back to work. But if there's no summer camps open after school, you have no childcare. And if you have no childcare, you don't have people going back to work.
We are all in together, and if our network stays strong, rely on each other, we're going to get through this.
Be sure to make it a point to support local businesses when you can during this COVID epidemic and beyond. With Burlington Businesses, I'm BNews reporter Tad Stefanak.
For the first time ever, the Massachusetts House of Representatives took a formal vote remotely. The bill they passed was to authorize necessary state borrowing during the COVID-19 public health emergency. Burlington State Rep Ken Gordon said it was fascinating to take part in this historic remote voting session in the House as they passed this bill to provide the state with access to funds that will support residents and businesses in the Commonwealth throughout the emergency. The session this week was the first held following the passage of emergency rules enabling House members to vote and debate remotely in the midst of the pandemic. The emergency rules were adopted to ensure that members could comply with social distancing measures put into place by Governor Baker. The bill now goes to the Senate for consideration. COVID has forced us to change how we look at special days on the calendar. However, instead of simply canceling or postponing, people are getting creative to commemorate these moments. This week, one resident held a special baby shower parade for her expecting sister and her husband. BNews reporter Chris Flaherty has this look.
In the midst of the COVID pandemic, residents are looking for new and creative ways to celebrate special occasions, from birthdays to Easter Sunday, and now baby showers. On Sunday, April 26th, Kirsten Merlino organized a special socially distant baby shower for her sister Liz and her husband John Clancy.
I saw all these different parades going on. I had a cousin text me. She's like, "Hey, we should do a parade." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." The parades are really cool. I was like, but I don't want to have all these people drive by, just to drive by a house and say, "Hey, bye." And I just didn't want to almost waste people's time for that. So I was trying to think of what I could do to make it fun, but keep it safe so people weren't getting near each other and everyone was staying socially distant.
The shower, themed for the New England Patriots, had guests drive by the Clancy home, attempting to launch packs of diapers into a basket on the lawn.
I basically gave them a starting location, and then I gave them a little traffic loop for the parade loop, and I said, you have 3 attempts to drive by the house and throw as many diapers into the pack and play as you can. And I said, you can't get out of your car. That's basically the only rule. People were hanging out of their sunroofs and windows and doing all sorts of unique things, but people had fun with it.
Yeah, people really got into it. They had so many, everyone had signs. Everyone had decorated their cars. It was really fun. It definitely caused a scene. People who I didn't know ended up joining in. There was one market basket driver truck that joined our parade. He made a couple loops with the crowd.
Family and friends from all across New England made the trek to shower the expecting parents.
I mean, they drove a significant distance just to, show some support, which was honestly, I think, the best part about it. And now I have an entire pack and play full of diapers that is outside quarantining in my shed.
Moments like this show the resilience of the human spirit, and that in these times, the love and support of family never falters.
This is the best part of humanity coming through right here. This shows that family support, that love, your friends, everyone getting together. I didn't realize how much I needed this to happen until it was done. I didn't realize that, I was upset about not having a shower, as ridiculous as that seems, until all this happened and all that love and support. Really, it meant a lot more than I realized it would. What my sister doesn't tell anyone is that she's also getting married in September. And so I wanted to, shout out to that, because she's been trying to take care of me amongst all of this. And she's planning her own wedding for September. And, with everything going on, it's very stressful. And I'm just so excited for her as well. So shout out to Kirsten and her fiance, Keith.
I just keep looking back and smiling on the day, because honest to God, I was telling my parents what I was going to do. I was like, yep, this could probably be really lame, but I just want to do something. And after the day ended, we kept calling each other back. We're like, that was stupidly fun. That was stupidly fun. And the best of the best came out, and it was because of everybody. It was such a team effort. And that has to be acknowledged, that we're all in this together. And I'm just really happy that everyone was able to come together and celebrate Liz and John like we should, because we love them.
Until next time, this is Chris Flaherty for BNEWS Weekly.
Liz Clancy is a 4th grade teacher at Pine Glen Elementary. As part of her remote learning curriculum, she has had her students estimate how many diapers were thrown at their teacher. Congratulations to 4th grader Peter W., who had the closest guess of 300 diapers. Anyone who needs to renew a driver's license or an automobile registration online should take a close look at the URL they end up on before submitting any personal information. The Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles is cautioning customers to use only mass.gov/RMV when they are trying to renew a license or registration or process any business transactions online. Customers may inadvertently come across unofficial third-party websites or mimic sites that advertise similar services but have no affiliation with the RMV. Customers should avoid using any unofficial third-party websites that are offering RMV services to ensure that their personal and financial information is protected. One way to avoid scams is to ensure the abbreviation RMV is used. Any website using the phrase Department of Motor Vehicles or DMV should be avoided. Also, make sure the Commonwealth seal is located somewhere on the page. This will help ensure that it is an official government website. If it cannot be found, customers should leave the site immediately. The registry will never charge a customer to check the status of a license, registration, or title. If the site requires payment to access this information, it is an unsecured mimic site. Also, on the RMV website, a customer will never be charged to access registry forms and information, but unofficial third-party sites may charge for this service. The Burlington Parks and Recreation Department has been helping the community stay safe and enjoy virtual activities at home. Now they are looking ahead at what's next. BNews reporter Robert Paris spoke to Department Director Brendan Egan about their upcoming programs and has this report.
As many residents continue to stay in their homes, the Burlington Parks and Recreation Department has been gearing up for whatever comes their way in the fight of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We put our spring registration, which we are just about ready, the second week in April, we are going to go live with our spring registration. We put that on hold. And then out in our parks, we closed off, our maintenance staff went out and closed off all of the playground equipment, put caution tape on it, and we put signs up right away letting people know. We then started to close down our courts, our fields, the tracks, both at the high school and middle school.
A number of the upcoming events this month will be virtual.
We also have some new virtual programming that will be going out in May, and we're looking to do about 6 weeks. It'll go from May 11th to June 26th. So another opportunity for people to register for some virtual programming. Our program division has re-upped with some of our instructors. I do want to say we've had some really good response from our instructors as well, who are doing these programs free of charge, a lot of them. So that's been really good.
One of the biggest events of the summer are the concerts on the Common and Celebrate Burlington, which the department is currently looking into.
Something that we have to wait on the, some more guidance from the state. It would be great. My personal feeling is I would love to see some concerts out there this summer. Obviously crowds has to do, plays a big role in it, how many people we have. Common is pretty big, so, we're not making any promises. Maybe we section off areas, with just some simple grid lines on the grass with some athletic field paint, and people, you kind of have to stay in a section. But we don't know until we get some more guidance. And I know that's an easy way out for stuff, but we would like to still see some concerts out there. I think it will give people, get them back into a routine. We'd like to, obviously that information should be out by May 18th. If it comes out sooner, we can, make a decision quicker than that. But all of our outdoor activities, it's really going to depend on numbers and what they say can gather in a group.
The department hasn't missed a beat when it comes to Burlington parks.
Maintenance staff, has really been out in the parks each day, making sure that the signage is up and it's visible, that the equipment has been blocked off or taped off. The guys have been staying on top of it. They've been able to get some projects done early season.
As what Library Director Michael Wick said, Brendan also misses the interaction with people in the community.
I'd like to see people back gathering, a return to typical activities, people outside enjoying themselves. I will say, people get cabin fever being inside, and I see a lot of people out walking, and that's good. That's a positive thing. Exercise, enjoying nature. I'd like to see more people doing that, when we return to a typical routine.
Lastly, Brendan urges everyone using the parks to continue with social distancing.
The parks themselves aren't closed. So if you need to get out and take a walk, it's there for you. The parks are there for you. We just ask that you physical distance and that you don't use the equipment in the courts that are there.
I'm Robert Paris for BNEWS Weekly.
Another week, another photo to highlight. This week's photo is a great shot of a rather large bird. It was sent in by Cheryl Kozer and shows a great blue heron at the Burlington Reservoir. The fish-eating bird and frog-eating bird is near the shoreline, likely looking for its next meal. So if you see anything flying around that looks like a great big pterodactyl, you'll know now that it's a great blue heron. Thanks for the photo, Cheryl. We'd like to see your photos. They could be of your stay-at-home activities, shots of your pets, the coming signs of spring, or just weather seen from your own backyard. Whatever you think is interesting and want to share with us and the community. Email your photos to bcatt@bcattv.org with the subject line Photo of the Week. Okay, that's it from the news desk here at BNEWS Weekly. I'm Phil Gallagher along with Rich Hosford, Tad Stefanak, Chris Flaherty, and Robert Paris. Thank you for joining us.